Hello guys, okay, so you'll have to forgive me. I have a bit of a cold, bit of a head cold. However, been having some elderberry and it has just stopped it in its tracks. I just feel a little snotty, which is very, very sexy, I have to add. Anyway, I hate having a cold. The reason, I'm going to have some elderflower tea later on, I think. The reason why I have made this video today is because I feel there is something that I need to speak about that I think is quite a pressing subject and is a very important aspect of the craft of the nameless art. And I think it's something that has perhaps been missed out in recent years. However, it is something that has always been of witchcraft. It is something that has always been there. And that is spirit work. That is working with spirits. And now, you know, we can't pretend that over the past couple of hundred years, witches haven't ever worked with spirits and they have worked with deities. Because the idea of a witch working with a deity, obviously, we can stretch back far into Roman and Greek times, and you know, various people in Egypt as well. The art of Heka, of magic. Of course, that's very ancient. But over the years, since Christianity and other Abrahamic beliefs stemmed in, people worked with spirits, morely with spirits. The majority of the time, because I don't doubt that there were people that did work with gods, that deities that have become fae and stuff like that. I do not doubt that. What I'm saying is that spirit work is a very, very important part of witchcraft, and it always has been. It has always been something that has resonated and been found within witchcraft, and we can't pretend that the past couple of hundred years haven't happened. We can't pretend that witches don't work with spirits. Now, obviously, I think if you work with a deity, of course you're going to get good results. Deities are powerful, don't get me wrong. But I feel that if you want specific, you know, very, very great results-based operative witchcraft, spirit work, spirit work, spirit work. And that is literally all I'm going to say for that, because if you want a result from your craft, working with spirits will do that. You know, the familiar spirit is a massive part of witchcraft, you know, and there are various authors that have gone on to elaborate upon the idea and the concept of the familiar spirit, then being a shamanic aspect of ourselves, you know, being power animals, perhaps totem animals. Now, I know these are different from familiar spirits, but there's that idea there that a lot of authors I have read have talked about it being a very shamanic aspect of that. And obviously a completely separate entity within itself. But the familiar spirit will help you out, and that is what your familiar spirit will do. Your familiar spirit is your friend. You know, this isn't just this being that does stuff willy-nilly. It's a relationship. You have to build a relationship. Of course, I'm not going to go up to a stranger on the street and go, can I have 20 quid, please? But of course, if I went up to a stranger on the street and went, oh, hi, my name's George, nice to meet you, what's your name? Oh, do you fancy coming round? Do you fancy having a cup of tea, a chat, or all this stuff? No, of course, obviously, you don't broach a familiar spirit like that. But in a similar aspect, you kind of do. You know, you introduce yourself to the familiar. You know, hopefully the familiar introduces itself to you. You know, there are various things that happen where, you know, there's this, it's a relationship, it's a bond. You know, you don't just, it's not just a work pal, it's a relationship. It's a full-on friendship. You know, it's a covenant and pact of friendship on the other side. And they will carry messages for you to the other side, to the spirit world. You know, familiar spirits aren't just a thing as well, glorified by the witch craze. Of course, yeah, of course there was a big thing in the witch crazes, but we know even from recent that familiar spirits are an aspect of witchcraft. And even in ancient times, there's evidence of familiar spirits. you know, I mean, recently, Cecil Williamson, one of the fans, I really look up to him. And recently read his complete book of witchcraft, treading towards Raymond Buckland there, his book of witchcraft, the Grimoire of the Museum of Witchcraft, which fascinating read, by the way, and I will do a review. But he had a belief in his familiar spirit was within his shadow, and he consulted his shadow before undergoing any important decisions within his life. And so, you know, right up until the early 1900s, we see this, you know, and stretching even into very, very recently. And, you know, by other witches as well, obviously not just by Cecil Williamson, but by other wayside witches, other village witches. It's an integral, important part of witchcraft. We can't pretend that it doesn't happen. And a familiar spirit will protect you. A familiar spirit will do things for you. Obviously, if you give them something back, it's a pact. Now, very important aspect of that. And now, of course, this kind of leads me on to the next subject, which is ancestor work, working with the spirits of the dead. Now, if you have an ancestor, perhaps you have a granddad that always used to sort you out a little bit of money when times were hard, who's not to say that he's not going to do that still, even if he is passed on to the spirit world? Even more so, you know, he can work with the spirit world to get you what you want, which is fantastic, you know. And so if you're down and out, and you need money, and you need financially, you're struggling quite a lot, of course your granddad will help you out. If you had a dog that was a fierce protector during your lifetime, of course that dog will protect you. You know, even down to the pets that we have had, the spirits of the dead will help us out. They will be there for us, and they will help us out. Working with the dead, again, is a very important part of witchcraft. It's in the old classical tales that we see, you know, people working with necromancy and working with the dead and calling them up. And cunning folk and witches as well, working with the dead. It's a very old part of witchcraft. It goes hand in hand, and it gets stuff done. It gets results. If you want results, work with spirit, you know, and don't be afraid to work with your ancestors or work with your dead, because you're practicing witchcraft. So, you know, you kind of either need to face it or go home, without sounding awful, but you need to face it and be able to work with the spirits of the dead and not get the willies or get freaked out. Or just don't practice witchcraft, because it does involve spirit work. You know, now, of course, obviously, I'm not saying that if you don't work with spirits, your path isn't valid as a witch, and what you're practicing isn't witchcraft. I'm not saying that, and I'm not insinuating that at all. But what I am saying is we can't pretend that it's not been a part of witchcraft, because it is a very integral and important part of the craft. It's a very, very important part of witchcraft, and you can't pretend that people haven't done that. Making a pact with a spirit is one of the most effective ways to get magic done. It is one of the most effective ways. As long as you carry out that pact and you give that pact back what you've promised, that's very important, because you could get hurt. You will get results. You know, it's making pacts with spirits and making, you know, promises to spirits and fulfilling them is the best. If you do this for me, I will give you blah, blah, blah. And so when that happens, you have to give them what you've promised. It's the oldest trick in the book. It's no big secret. And it's such an important part of witchcraft, and I think that this should be something that people should bring back, because it's throughout history. Do some research, look it up. Working with spirits, imps, demons, the fae, whatever you want to call them. And also, working with the fae. Very old, you know, an aspect of the craft where the fairy world and the world of witches crossed over, you know. Witches and fae are heavily associated with each other, and of course the witch will work with the fae. nature spirits, or spirits of water, or spirits of the sea. Not just ancestors and familiar spirits, but spirits of natural places, the sea spirits, you know, the temperamental sea spirits that are like, you know, yeah, sea spirits that are very temperamental and tend to have a little bit of an attitude on them. So I've heard, I'm taking this, and they often do that with people's tools, which is quite hilarious. But, you know, the wind spirits, working with spirits of wind, working with the spirits of the land, the genus loci, all this, very, very, very important aspects of the craft, and it goes hand in hand. Of course, we have this world from the spirit world, reaching out. And if you get your hand and you grab hold of the spirit world, that's where you establish that connection. That's where you establish that electricity, that spark, that connection, so that we can send messages to the world of spirits. If you don't work with spirits and you're trying to reach other worlds, you know, it's not going to happen. Whereas if you try to establish a relationship with spirits, going to happen. The thing about electricity and connecting, that actually sounded a bit more like the internet. But I hope you get my drift in this. And I just want to do this video to reiterate the importance of spirit work. If you want good results based operative witchcraft, spirit work, spirit work, spirit work. It will work. Okay? Over and out.